Hey, good morning, guys and gals. I have an install I need to do this morning, but I don't feel like doing it. So it's a Saturday. I don't really feel like doing it. I need to go get a haircut here in a couple hours. I wanted to make a video today that I have been meaning to do. Actually, probably been meaning to do this for about a year and a half to 2 years, talking about how I became an installer. First, how I got into the hobby, how I became someone who liked to install their sabers, and then how I turned that into a business, and a little bit of a background with me, just in general, right? Where I come from professionally, how I got into this, what you can expect to find in this hobby as far as good and bad, right? Both bad, just good and bad. There are some crazies in this hobby. There's crazies everywhere, really, and this hobby is no different, right? I'm not a part of any other hobby really, but I imagine they're all pretty much the same. But I've had many people ask me over the years how I got into this. I've been doing this in February 1st coming up will be 6 years that I've been in business, and 5.5 of those where I've been doing this full time. I currently do this full time. All right, and so I want to talk about all that. We can talk about the tooling that I've had to buy over the years in order to kind of keep up with this, like where you could get that tooling if that's the path that you decide to go to, but kind of just give you an overall view of what it's taken for me to get from where I was in the beginning to where I am now. I have a couple sabers over here to kind of signify different stages in my career, right? And the very first one is this guy right here. This is a Graflex that I made from parts from Home Depot, right? Um, let's back up to about 6 years ago, maybe 6.5 years ago. I come from a commercial construction background. I was a project manager and a project engineer, depending on what project I was on for two different companies I worked for. But that was my profession, and I worked all the time. Right, a typical day for me could start to be in the office at 5 a.m. Sometimes I get home in a decent hour, 7 p.m. Sometimes I'd stay later. Sometimes I'd have to be on the job site in the middle of the night because I did commercial concrete in particular, so I would like to be on site when the pours were happening, right? So my work schedule was all over the place, and it was a lot, and I did this for years. My wife actually came to me one day and she's like, man, you really need to get a hobby. Like, just find something that you like to do that doesn't have anything to do with work, to give you something to unwind. I balked at that at first. I was like, oh, I don't need a hobby. I've got my job, right? But then I sat on that for about 2 weeks, and really thought about it as I went to work, right? And then decided, man, you know what would be super cool is if I could build a lightsaber, have a lightsaber. First, I just wanted to have one. So it really didn't start off as like a hobby mindset. I wanted to have one. So I did some quick Google searches. I didn't know anything about the Facebook groups or the niche hobby that we're in now. I found companies like Saberforge, which had some really cool stuff. They've got modular pieces that you can put together, but they don't have anything that's from the movies. It's all custom. It's a little bit wild for me. It's not something that I was looking for at all. I wanted a replica lightsaber from the movies. So Saberforge, for me anyway, it was off the table, which I'm not talking crap about them. It's just not for me, right? So that wasn't an option for me. I kept digging, seeing what was out there, and I came across a YouTube video, and for the life of me, I can't find it now. Maybe some of you out there have seen it or know where to find it. There was one guy in particular. Um, it it was how to build a lightsaber from Home Depot parts. So I clicked on it and I watched it, and then I watched it again, and then I watched it again. It probably took me about 3 weeks to watch it 2 or 3 times, because I would just watch a little bit in between, like if I had a break here in the morning when drinking some coffee here. But anyway, this guy made a lightsaber out of Home Depot parts. And I was like, man, that's so cool. There's the hobby right there. I'm going to make my own lightsaber in my spare time. So I dove down in the video. There's a particular list of stuff that he told you that you needed to get. So I wrote all that down. One day after work, when I got off at a decent hour, I went to Home Depot. I grabbed all the parts that I thought I needed. Came home. I didn't have a Dremel or anything like that. All of my tools were basically for working around the house, working on my cars a little bit. So I didn't have like Dremels and files and drill bits and stuff like that. So I went and I purchased all this stuff, and I did it over time. This saber took me 2 months to build because I just pieced it together little by little, just getting all the tools that I needed. These red buttons here were actually a remote control to an old TV that my daughter and I we just went thrifting because I was like, hey, I need to find some red buttons. Come with me, we'll go see what we can find. I couldn't find anything other than this old TV remote, so I ended up buying the remote for $2 or $3. I ripped the buttons off of it. I actually painted them red with some nail polish because that's what we had around. I've got a wife and a daughter at home, so there's plenty of nail polish here. I painted that, clear coated it, and that's what I use for buttons, and these are just some oversized button head screws, right? So I made this guy over the course of a couple months. I finished everything up. It was all hand dremeled. There's actually a wooden dowel here in the middle, so this is solid. It doesn't come apart. And then at the very end, I was stuck on the T-tracks. And I don't remember if it said in the video or if I just happened to find it. The T-tracks, as I was looking for them online, I found the Custom Saber Shop. And I was amazed that there was even a place called the Custom Saber Shop. And I started looking through all their stuff, and it was like so cool, man. But I found the T-tracks. I bought them, finished this off. As soon as I was done with it, I was immediately hooked, and I wanted to build a real one. But while looking for the T-tracks on the Custom Saber Shop, at the time, those guys were selling Graflex 2.0s. And if you guys know anything about Graflex 2.0s, 6-7 years ago, you could find them in abundance. This is a Star Killer made from one that we'll talk about a little bit later. But this started out as a Graflex 2.0. All right. So I bought that Graflex 2.0 kit. At that time, almost nobody was printing chassis. So you had to go on Etsy to find a chassis. And then like when you found a chassis on Etsy, you would just find one that matched the ID of the handle or the inner diameter of the handle. They really weren't specific to a particular saber. They were kind of made for everything with like a 1.25 ID, right? The board shelf was a flat board shelf. Hang on, let me go grab an old chassis. I've got one right here that we'll talk about in a minute. But the board shelf was very similar to this, right? It was a flat board shelf, flat all the way through. You put any board that you want to on here, and you just made it work, right? Wires, it didn't matter. But that at the time, 6.5 years ago, that was the standard. So I bought this chassis off Etsy, went to the Custom Saber Shop. I tried to do some YouTube diving, right? Found all the parts that I needed. I needed battery tabs. I needed wire. I didn't have a soldering station, so I bought one from Amazon for about $25. No solder, right? So I bought the cheapest solder that I could find on Amazon. Two big mistakes there, but I rectified that later in life, right? But the cheapest solder I could find, the cheapest wire I could find, which was silicone wire. Although I do hate silicone wire, I much prefer PTFE wire now. Silicone wire was pretty standard back then. That's kind of what everyone was using. You could get it off Amazon, eBay, wherever you could find it, right? So I gathered up all these parts. I gathered up a 7-pin blade connector from Custom Saber Shop with no LEDs on it, just the pins, a battery, a pancake speaker. I didn't use a 28mm bass speaker. I used a pancake speaker like this. I didn't even know there was a bass speaker out there. All right, so we got this lovely pancake speaker here. I gathered up all these parts. I watched another tutorial on YouTube that I happened to find. It was how to build a lightsaber, and it was a multi-part deal. And I apologize, I don't know who made it. It's been so long since I thought about it. I just don't remember the maker, but I think it's still out there. Anyway, he built a Graflex also. So watching that for a few times before I started. I got the LED strips for my blade. I got the polycarbonate tube. I mean, I got pretty much everything I needed from the Custom Saber Shop, which today, even still, for all your parts, I mean, mostly you can get just about everything there, although I do prefer these days to get most of my stuff from Sabers in the UK because Cal and I have a good relationship. He treats me good. I like the parts that he has. It's just my preference, right? So not to say that there's anything wrong with the Custom Saber Shop. As a matter of fact, there's still stuff that I get from them, and that they are a very solid choice located up in Idaho. All right. Anyway, so I got that stuff. I installed it. It took me about a week and a half to install it, but all together with buying the Graflex and the parts, the tools, the chassis, I mean, it took me about 6 months to put that thing together because I wasn't in a hurry. I was still working full time, and work really took most of my mental capacity. I put it together, and then I was super hooked, right? I immediately gave that off as a gift. It was an Hilt LED system with a CFX board. CFX had just come out, but as soon as I put that together with the Hilt LED system, I found out about NeoPixel. So I wanted to get rid of that piece because the fun in that was just building it for me. I gave it away as a gift. I bought another one, right? I bought all the parts again. I bought another chassis from Etsy. This time I bought the strips for my blade and the polycarbonate tube. I didn't do that the first time around because I didn't know about it. Built it again, but for a NeoPixel setup. And then I built my NeoPixel blade. I still have pictures of it on my Facebook if you scroll way down, and I was super happy with that. And that's how I got into the hobby. So I wanted to build another one, and I didn't need to. I didn't want to invest all that money again, so what I did is I started an Etsy shop. I took the Graflex that I built, I put it on the Etsy shop, and it sold, right? So I took that money, I just reinvested it so that I could build another Graflex 2.0. And I did that between Etsy and building those Graflexes. I probably built 65 Graflexes before I ever touched a different saber. It was never even an option for me to do a different saber because I was just having fun doing these Graflex builds, right? Then eventually somebody approached me after I started my Facebook group or my Facebook page. I'd had my Etsy for a while, started my Facebook page. Someone approached me asking me if I could install a different type of saber for them, and unfortunately I don't remember what that was. I think it was a Cloud City Saber Star Killer, and I said sure, let me try it, right? It took me a couple weeks to get it, but I got it done. Not the prettiest install, but again, these types of chassis at the time were pretty standard, and everybody was kind of getting them from Etsy. Not everybody had 3D printers like they have in the hobby now. And I'll talk about why I started 3D printing in a second, right? But so I did about 65 of those before I touched another one. Then I came across the Star Killer design from Cloud City Sabers. And I had known about that design from the game. It just never occurred to me that that was something that was put into real life. So when I found that, I was blown away. All right, because I love the game. I loved the look of the Star Killer. This one's a little bit more embellished than the typical 2.0 SK that you would find, but I did make this. I just love the look of the exposed crystal chamber, so I started diving into those. And again, at the time, the CCS SK kits were in abundance. So I mean, I could reach out to Jeremy and I could grab one, and if I needed another one, I could just, left and right, like you could grab those and you could build them. The difference was like the crystal chamber wasn't cut out. You had to do that yourself with a Dremel, or at least it was a Dremel with me because I didn't have a mill at the time, right? And you had to do a lot of stuff by hand, but that was part of the fun of it. So I started doing those, and I just built up from there. Somewhere along the line, very early on, and I do remember the situation that made me get a printer, I bought a holder. Let me grab one of these. This is, if it'll focus, this is a blade connector with some LEDs on it. This particular one being from Sabers. The one that I had at the time was from the Custom Saber Shop, though. It didn't have any LEDs on it. It just had the pins and the PCB. I needed a holder to put inside of an emitter. I didn't 3D print, so I found some on Etsy that somebody was selling. I bought one for a 1-inch blade holder. It came to me. I started to install it. I didn't test fit it before I started installing it, right? So I got everything wired up. I got the PCB put into the holder. I went to put it inside the Saber, and there was just so much wobble in there. It was like, it just was wild. So I reached out to the guy. I was very cool about it. Like, I wasn't mad. I was just like, hey man, I ordered a 1-inch diameter holder. This one, I calipered it. It was like 0.98 inches or something. There's a lot of wobble. Can you help me out? Right. Little did I know that that part was like a 2 or 3 5-cent part to print. The response to my Etsy inquiry about that was something to the effect of, well, that's just what we do, or that's just how they're printed in the Saber community. We in the Saber community will take some electrical tape and wrap it around there until it fits. And I was blown away because, first of all, I didn't want to do that because I was afraid I would get that off center and fry my board. Secondly, I was like thinking to myself, why don't we in the Saber community just print a 1-inch holder when it's supposed to be a 1-inch holder, right? I got a little aggravated at that. I sent him the parts back. I didn't want them, right? So I sent them back to him. I went to some 3D printing research online, and I found the Ender 3 Pro. So I bought my first printer, right? The very first design I ever made was a PCB holder that was 1 inch in diameter, and lo and behold, it came out just right. So I finished the install that I was doing. The second design that I ever did, and it's something that I still use to this day because I just like the fact that it was the second thing I designed, was a 2-switch holder for a clamp card inside of a true Graflex. Of course, this isn't one, but when you do the replicas or sometimes the 2.0s or some other, like the Roman Props MK1 will have this setup as well, right? You'll have 2 switches underneath your clamp card right here, and I needed a holder for those 2 tactile switches. I probably spent an entire day designing that, and I was very proud of that design at the time, and it's a design that holds true today, and it still works, so I still use that. Printed it, and it worked fine. At the time, I was doing so many installs by now that I needed a second printer. So I went and I bought another Ender 3 Pro and set that up in my little office, running chassis, trying to design chassis, bringing me to this. This is one of my first chassis designs, and it is a ridiculous monster. I did not know how to emboss on a curved surface, right? So what I would do is I'd go through on my chassis, focus in on this monstrosity. I'd make this flat so that I could come over here and I could put my text here, and for some reason I decided that the entire chassis needed to say Solo Sabers, right? And that's what I did. And this is so ridiculous, but I keep it on my shelf as a reminder of where I came from, right? Because as ridiculous as this is today, this is something that was pretty acceptable at the time, because when I got those printers, I stopped buying the chassis from Etsy and I taught myself Fusion 360 to learn how to design my own. I do come from a CAD background. I've got a technical degree in SolidWorks. I used CAD almost all my life. I've been a project manager, a mechanical engineer, and a design engineer. And all of those professions use CAD in some form or fashion. So it was a pretty easy transition for me to go from SolidWorks into Fusion 360. So I started designing my own tubes. I still went with what I knew. This was the only experience that I had was, okay, I need to have this board shelf here. I need to have it wide open so that it could accept any board, and I'll just print my own, right? So that's what I did for a long time. Until one day I just decided, man, I hate seeing those wires. And let me see if I can find an example. I don't know that I have one here. No, I don't. All the installs that I have here are from my buddies. I don't really keep any, I don't have any Sabers that I installed. But eventually, if you're any follower of my work or my channel, you've seen my install videos, right? Now I make a special, it's very important for me for the chassis to hug the exact dimensions of the board. I try to hide all the wires whenever I can. You know, even this battery channel right here, if you can see that, that is a rectangular battery channel, because at the time I did not know how to make that circular and curve the battery, right, which is a 0.75 inch diameter battery, by the way, but I didn't know how to do that, so I was cutting rectangles into this guy. This is a monstrosity. But this is how I started 3D printing. And then from here, I kept trying new things, trying to get better, trying to get better. I eventually turned in those Ender 3 Pros. I used them for years. I had 3 of them at the time when I stopped using them. I eventually got a Bamboo Labs X1 Carbon. This actually came from a really good customer of mine. It was a gift from my buddy Ruben. I had done a lot of projects for him. He reached out one day and said he wanted to get me something to help my business, and he sent me this. And I have told him over the years, trying to pay him back for something, he hasn't let me pay him back yet. So hopefully, if you're watching, Ruben, one day you let me pay you back for that. I haven't forgotten. But a super cool gift, right? I had the X1 Carbon right before they launched because the company, Bamboo Lab, had reached out to me asking me if I wanted to try one. And I just needed to do a review on it. So I did. I got one in the mail. I had some problems with it. I tried printing. It was printing okay, but it wasn't printing better than my Ender 3s at the time because the software was brand new. There was hardly any customer support. This was pre-launch, right? So I ended up getting a hold of the guy, and I was just like, man, I'm not using it. I don't like it. Right? So I swore off of them for a long time, and I stuck to my guns with those Ender 3 Pros because those are what I knew. But at the time that Ruben sent me this guy had been out for about 2 years, and when I got this one in the mail, I had heard from a couple buddies that had it as well, that it was a completely different experience. So I got this one, tried it out, and I swear by this machine, right? But that is how I managed, or that is how I progressed my 3D printing or my chassis skills. I just kept practicing and changing. There weren't a lot of people like there are now that are designing and 3D printing their chassis. So if you're brand new into the game now and you come in and you want to start designing stuff, you can go on to any of these Facebook groups or you can go on YouTube. There's a handful of guys that are doing it and they're very good at it. There's a handful of guys that have their own style. You'll find very many more guys who copy the style of those handful of guys. But there are many examples of chassis out there, so you can go look and say, okay, he did that, or I need to incorporate this, or I shouldn't do it this way. There was none of that when I started. I just had to figure it out. So that's why this humble beginning right here stays with me, because I don't want to forget about that. But anyway, so I started printing my own chassis. I started trying to hide the wiring, started doing different Sabers. At this time of this video, being almost 6 years in, I think I've got about 2,600 installs under my belt, right? I've done about 2,600 different lightsabers, and it's been a journey. It's been quite a journey. I've met a lot of cool people. I've met some of my best friends in life. I've met some people that are really cool, and I've met some people that are wild, right? Like my first 2 years, I had a real big problem with dealing with shady people because I would just take any business that came my way. I didn't care who you were, what was going on. I didn't look into you at all. Like if you wanted me to do something for you, I was very excited and I was new and I wanted to do that because it helped me bring a lightsaber to life for you, and it helped me build my portfolio and give me experience and kept me doing something that I wanted to do, my hobby, right? My wife laughs now because she told me to find a hobby to get me away from work. I ended up taking that hobby and turning it into a business, and now I work more at that hobby than I ever did at my other job. But that's another story, right? But it kept me in the space that I wanted to be in, building lightsabers. It was allowing me to hone my skills. And I had a lot of problems with people, either just like, sometimes you run across people that you just don't get along with, which is fine. That's life, right? I don't count that. You'll have genuine scammers out there who I've had to deal with that, you know, you'll do something exactly the way that they asked you to do it, then they'll try to do a PayPal dispute on you. I mean, it was pretty rough for the first 2 years until I had to learn to say no to some work, right? And that's probably pretty important in this hobby. Like, you need to know when to say no. Like, if you're talking to someone about a project and you're getting vibes that are off, it's okay to say no. If they take it a certain way, that's on them, right? But you have the right to, or like you reserve the right to say no and not do business with anyone if you don't feel comfortable doing it. And that's what I've learned. Like, that was a hard lesson for me to learn in the first 2 years, but I've gotten very, very good at that. Where over this last year, like this year is almost done, right? This last year I only had one of those people, and that was inevitable. This one is this one's pretty crazy. Still trolls my YouTube channel and everywhere else that he could possibly do. That's a wild story. He did a PayPal dispute but lost. That's part of the reason why I do my demo videos, and I save I just archive entire conversations. I don't like to do it as proof, but they have saved me, and that's something that you'll probably want to do. Like, even if you don't make your demos public, if you just make them private and set them off somewhere to show that the product works like it's supposed to work before it leaves your hands, those videos have saved me. I've never lost a dispute that way. I haven't had very many, but I've never lost one because I've had, like, hey, you told me to do it like this, and I gave you the video, and after I showed you the video, you said it worked fine, and now you're trying to say it does this and that. Like, sometimes I mess up. In fact, over the 6 years I've been doing this, I've messed up a lot. I don't do it so much anymore, but from time to time I do, right? If those honest mistakes happen and I can tell that it was on me, I always work with the person. I pay for shipping back. I fix it. I pay to ship it back to them. I apologize for the mistake. That's really all you can do, right? But you'll be able to tell when people aren't trying to be honest with you and they're trying to get one over. It's just got a certain vibe to it. So unfortunately, there is that in this hobby, and that's something to watch out for. All right, because they will take advantage. Those types of people like to take advantage of people who are very new in the hobby and haven't been established yet, or they're just batshit crazy, one or the other, right? Like the guy this year is just kind of batshit crazy. But that was kind of my journey into doing it full time. I used to do it in between. I'd work on the projects that I had in commercial concrete, and then I'd come home and I'd install Sabers in my spare time. So I was basically doing two jobs. I was being run ragged, and then COVID hit. When COVID hit, the particular company that I was working for told me I could work from home, right? So if I'm not on the job site looking at stuff or walking around, if I just had like administrative paperwork to do, each day I could get done in like 2.5 hours, right? It was just 2.5 hours of paperwork. I had some stuff I needed to do at the beginning of the day, and then I had some stuff I needed to wrap up at the end of the day, kind of like just a wrap up of the day of what happened. So I had a large space there in the afternoon where I could start working solely on Sabers, and that's what I did, and that's when this kind of took off for me. And then after COVID was over and people started migrating back to the office, I started to realize I'm kind of losing money by going into work because I'm not able to work on Sabers all day. And I sat my wife down and had a talk with her, asked her if she was okay with it, and of course she was super supportive. And I made the decision to quit my job, put my 2-week notice in, quit my job, right? Come and do Sabers full time and see where that would take me. And that's been the last 6 years of my life. During that time, I've had to buy all kinds of tooling, right? So I got the X1 Carbon for free as a gift, but I bought the 3 Ender 3 Pros. Those were about $250 a piece at the time, right? I have a Bamboo Labs H2S, not really something you need for the saber hobby, just something that I wanted to play with. So I don't really count that as something that you'll need, but I got a Hako soldering station. I actually have 2. I've got one that I use, and I have a brand new one that I keep in the closet in case this one goes down and I don't have to wait on ordering another one. So that was 2 that I ordered. I had to upgrade to PTFE wire, and then I had to upgrade my solder. My solder is something that my buddy Tim laughs at me about because I buy this roll right here. It cost me $100. It's $100 for that solder. Kind of expensive for solder, if I'm being honest, right? But I solder every day, and that roll lasts me a year, right? And it lasts me probably just over a year. So if you are buying cheaper rolls of solder, which is perfectly fine, right? You pay $20 a roll or $15 a roll. Ask yourself, how many are you using in a year? If it's more than $100, that might be the thing for you, right? It made financial sense for me to buy that. It was a better deal for me. All right, so I got that. Over the years, I started doing some machining, right? let me find one. This one is a star killer that I did. I used my mill to mill out this crystal chamber here, and my lathe and stuff to build some of these greeblies that you see inside of the crystal chamber. Now, you don't need a lathe and a mill to do install work, but what I didn't want to do is be stuck in a rut where I was just an installer, because the hobby now has many installers, and some of them are very good, right? So I didn't want to be classified as just somebody who took other people's stuff and installed it. I wanted to start making some of my own stuff. So I had to buy a mill. The first mill that I bought was too small. It was a tabletop mill. It just was not right for the type of stuff I wanted to do. But I mean, that thing was like $650. Now it's just a fancy drill press. I still use it, right? I went and I bought an actual mill that I could use. That one was $3,500. I wanted a lathe because I wanted to start making my own sabers. The first lathe I bought was drastically too small. I bought that from my buddy Rob. It was a tabletop lathe. It was pretty cool. I mean, he gave it to me for a super cool deal. It was nice to play around with, but it was everything. It was teaching me everything that I needed that I didn't have, right? So I passed that on to somebody for very cheap. I went all in and I bought myself a gunsmithing lathe from Grizzly. I forget the exact dimensions offhand, but that thing was around $7,800, $8,500, something like that. So that was a major investment in tools just right there between the 2 mills and the lathe. 2 mills and 2 lathes, really, because like the first mill and the first lathe that I bought, I was being cheap, and they say if you buy cheap, you're going to buy twice, and that's certainly what happened. So if you're in the market for a mill or a lathe, I would highly recommend that you do your research, find out which one is going to do the best for you, save your money, and get the good one, and that way you can grow into the machine instead of growing out of it. All right, if that makes sense. So the mill and the lathe, I got that. That was an investment. Then I started doing some laser work. I was doing acid etching for a long time. This acid etch in particular is from my buddy Carl Danby from Volsa Valhalla in the UK. This guy does fantastic work, and I watched him do fantastic work since the day he came onto the scene. He came onto the scene very close to the same month that I did. It was the same year for sure, but it was very close to the same time that I came on. So did he. I was installing, he was acid etching, and his stuff from the very jump was just tremendous, and it's only gotten better. So I don't even acid etch anymore because it's kind of like a joke. I mean, why am I going to acid etch? I would rather recommend you to someone like that who would do the most outstanding job for you instead of someone like me. I'm not very good at designing these types of things. It's something that I could probably, if I sat down and tried to design this, it would take me 5 times longer than it took him. My design wouldn't be as good, and my execution would not be as good. All right, so Carl Danby, there is a guy named Joshua Gamble here in the United States that does very nice acid etching. I've just not used him ever before, but all the work that I see from that guy is outstanding. So these guys who specialize in that type of stuff, I just took it out of my out of my toolbox because it was a time killer for me, and I wasn't doing as good of a job. I needed to focus on other things, right? Powder coating is another thing that I tried. I spent quite a bit of money and resources building up a powder coating station. I tried it. It was cool, but again, messy, time consuming, and I've never seen anybody powder coat as well as Christopher Royal over at Royal Custom Armory, and he's located in Michigan. So if you guys need some powder coating, go to that guy because he'll bust it out for you. Super clean work, super sharp. Not something I wanted in my toolbox anymore because I could just recommend him, right? So I stopped acid etching. I stopped powder coating, focused more into installing, improving my craft and my chassis, trying to design hilts. The first hilt I ever designed, my buddy Sean from SP Sabers hit me up one day, and he's like, "Hey man, do you feel like designing a Star Killer for me?" And I was like, wow, that is like a dream come true for me, though I've never designed a saber in my life. I was like, yeah, let me just give me some time, let me see what I can do. So I spent weeks on this thing, came up with the Raxus. This is not the Raxus, this is the Raxus Condemned which is a beefed up a version of the Raxus. But this is as close as I got right here, right now, right? So I designed that Raxus for him. He ran it. It was very successful, so that was very cool. He eventually came out with this. This is the Raxus Condemned, so he took that design. He beefed it up. He changed a lot of things. And this is this is the most expensive saber I have in my collection that he gifted to me. It's got my buddy's install in it. Well, like I installed it, but it's got my buddy Tim's chassis in it. This saber means a lot to me, right? I had some input on the initial design. It came from my friend Sean. My other friend Tim designed the chassis. There's a lot of stuff going on here that I'll never get rid of this saber. But that is what got me into designing hilts on Fusion 360, right? In between trying to keep up with the installs, keep up with trying to make little greeblies and test sabers here and there on my lathe. Eventually, my buddy Benji from Nerfherder Customs was working with Leon from Java's Junkyard. He came up with a crate slayer. Now this is his crate slayer that Java's Junkyard ran, but Benji designed. Originally for the crate slayer, Benji had this saber already made, but he made it from like a Graflex shell. He made it from this vintage piece over here. Like he had pieced this saber together that's in his collection now. He needed some help drawing it into CAD. He sent me that original saber that he pieced together. I drew this up for him for production purposes. We sent that over to Benji. He changed some things that he wanted to change, and then we sent that over to Leon so that he could run it. So this crate slayer, not only is it from my very good friend Benji and from my good friend Leon, I had a hand in drawing this up for production. So this saber means a lot to me also, and it will never go anywhere. But that is also how I started to get into designing more sabers. This gave me a lot of practice designing a saber. I had never had to draw one up that was made already, so it was very important to have to match all the dimensions that he had and get it as close as he could, but then also approach it from a production perspective that it could be ran. So that is the crate slayer, right? From the crate slayer, while still working on installs and chassis designs and making sabers on the lathe, I designed the Coda. The Coda for me is something I designed all by myself. I ran the saber all by myself. I didn't have any partners in this, so I worked with the factory to get these done. I went through the prototype. I got all 100 of them. I ordered 100 of them. I believe I got 110 at the very end. They all came to my house at the same time. I opened up all of the, it's a major ordeal to do a lightsaber run. I don't know that I would do it again, but it was very fun to do. 110 of these arriving to my house at the same time. I had to bring them all upstairs, unpack them all, go through each one of them to make sure the quality control was there, make sure all the screws and knobs and everything was right, make sure the handle was aligned properly, make sure there were no scratches. That took a long time, and they were all like super packaged up, so I'd unpackage them, unwrap them, check them, wrap them back up, take the ones that were defective, put them off to the side, take pictures, get in contact with the factory, talk to them about that. It was a large ordeal, but it was a successful saber. I was very grateful to the community for taking this and accepting it as part of the saber community. Out of 110, I sold all 110. All right, so this one in particular is mine. I'm waiting for the master chassis from Rick. So I did that, and then my buddy Tim from Tirfon Orbital and I went together in designing a lightsaber, and that is how we came up with the Convergence. So this is a saber that he and I came up with. He designed part of it, sent it to me. I designed part of it, sent it back to him. We kicked it back and forth a few times until we came up with something that we liked, and we did a run of 50 of these. Each one of us have the prototype. This is my prototype where I was trying some etching, some laser etching. Laser etching is something I touched on earlier, but then I just went off to something else. I don't have a script here, guys. I'm just talking, all right? But laser etching is something that I wanted to do. My good friend Cole had bought a laser, and he was doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and I was just like, man, I want to do that so badly. He sold me his 20-watt laser so I could practice, and it was the coolest thing. I was doing some stuff, but it wasn't quite what I wanted. he had that extra because he upgraded. So I upgraded and I went out and I bought a 100-watt MOPA fiber laser, so I could have all that power. I could do colors on steel and brass if I wanted to, and I've been learning how to do that, and I've been trying to incorporate more and more lasering into my projects on top of keeping up with my installs, my chassis designs, and all my machining, right? So there's that. What else do we got? Now I have a run. I've got a run of 9 Sabers that I'm doing. I haven't shown a picture of it. I'm just trying to do them. I'm trying to have them done before Christmas. I'm making them completely from scratch in-house, and then I'm going to install them all and then put them up for sale. And that's all while keeping up with my installs, keeping up with my chassis designs, and and doing the lathe and the mill stuff, doing the demos after I get done with Sabers. There's no shortcut here. There's really no shortcut. It was a very gradual thing for me to have a very nice little piece of success in this hobby. It's all due to all the repeat customers that I have. Of all my business that I have today, I would say roughly 98% of that business is repeat customers. And Jeremy from Cloud City Sabers said something to me at the very beginning, because I wasn't I wasn't around long enough to have repeat business yet. And we were talking about that, and he goes, "Yeah, man." He goes, "The repeat customers are the highest form of flattery that you can get here." I didn't quite understand that at the time because, like I said, I was so new. I was just happy to get any business, right? But being today that 98% of my business comes from repeat customers, I think about that comment that he made to me all the time, and I totally agree with it. It is the highest form of flattery that a person can get in this community, and I thank you guys very much for that. I'm looking at my board here. Everybody on my board, excuse me, yeah, everybody on my board currently is a repeat customer. And some people I've done, 2, 3, 4 Sabers for. There's a guy in particular here on the board that I've done a total of, I will have had done a total of about 30 Sabers for by the time it's all said and done. There's a guy on here that I've done every bit of 9 or 10, 7, 8, 9, 10. Like, that's a lot of money in this hobby when you consider the types of installs that these guys are getting. Even the Eco chassis, like, you have to buy the empty Saber from the company that you like it from. Then you have to ship it off to me, and then you pay for the install, and then you get it back. It's like this hobby is not cheap, right? I mean, an Eco install could run about $450. Right, the Saber that you like could be about $300. I mean, that's $750 right there, and that's just to have a Lightsaber replica. And so I really appreciate the guys who have even come to me one time. I appreciate you every bit as much as I appreciate the repeat customers. I'm very thankful for all the business. I'm also thankful for the guys who I've come across along the way who are just totally crazy, right? They off the rocker type crazy, because they taught me lessons as well, valuable lessons. I'd say sometimes more valuable than the people that I just get along with. These guys have taught me what to look out for, what not to do, and some mistakes that I made along the way too. There's a few of those that were my fault too. So I've learned to hone that down, right? I come from a military background. I'm not military myself, but my mom and dad were both in the Army. My mom retired early. My dad stayed in until I was about 16, and then he retired. My grandfather was in the Army. My uncles were in the Army. I was the only one really not to go. So my upbringing was very like black and white, stricter than most, I would say. Like not super strict, but like just kind of like a no bullshit kind of upbringing, and it shows through in my personality from time to time. And a lot of people, not a lot of people, but people have been rubbed like the wrong way from that. I have a dry sense of humor. I'm very serious about what I do. I can have a serious personality at times, and some people just don't mesh with that, and that's totally fine, right? But that's just who I am, how I was raised. And I'm 45 years old, So I'm never going to change. If anything, as I get older, it's just going to get worse because that's just how it goes, right? So that's a little bit about me. How to get into this install business. It will probably be a lot easier for you guys than it was for me. This really isn't a how to get into the install video. Now that I think about it, this is just a Solo Sabers journey on how I became Solo Sabers. So I started off this video thinking I was going to teach you how to get in, and now I'm just giving you my life story on Lightsaber. So that's just how I did it. If you were a new guy coming into this hobby today, and I see it quite a lot. Like the new guys will have like cheaper prices, which they should, because they don't have a reputation to back it up yet, right? If you're brand new, you're going to have cheaper prices. You attract the business so people can see your work, and then you get the repeat customers. And like over time, as you gain more experience and you're like a little bit more efficient, then you start raising your prices a little bit to match the quality of work and the time that was put in, right? But these newer guys, if you come in and you have that mentality, there's a lot of business out there, and I think you'll be very successful at it as long as you come at it from a place of passion instead of a place of, man, I just need to make a buck. If you try to get into this hobby and you're just thinking about money and you're not thinking about the quality of work, you're not going to last. I've seen a lot of people come and go. I've seen a lot of people here that should probably go, and like everybody knows it but them, right? Like this hobby is wild. I mean, you've got all kinds of characters, all kinds of players that are just different characters, and you just have to weather the storm. If you want to be successful, in my opinion, in this hobby, the best thing that you could do, and I don't do this all the time, but I try, right? Like the best thing that you could do is to not engage in the crazy shit that happens on the side. You keep your head down, you work on your craft, and you just try to get better, right? Like I'm trying to design hybrid chassis. I've got a buddy, Tim, over at Tirfon Orbital, one of my best friends. The dude makes amazing hybrid chassis. So a hybrid chassis, for those of you that don't know, is part plastic or SLS material, and the other part is brass. Let me show you one that he did, right? So we've got this Raxus Condemned. This is what you should spend your time trying to do. It is what I'm saying, right? You got this crystal chamber here, this brass battery cover. You know, this is a very, very cool chassis, and I love this thing, and his designs have gotten better since he made this one. This one's about probably a year old or so, maybe a little bit more. I think it's a little bit more actually, because he designed this chassis early on, but this chassis is amazing. So you should spend your time trying to hone whatever skill in this hobby that you have. If you're an acid etcher, a laser etcher, an installer, a saber maker, if you make plaques, if you make whatever, whatever it is that you make, your time is better spent trying to hone that. And I need to follow that advice. Sometimes I'm getting better at it. Like I don't really engage too much anymore in it. I used to take things very personally. I think that came from a place of being new and having to feel like I needed to defend myself. Now I just don't care, right? Like I already know what's happening. I know what the truth is. I know what the reality is. And most of the times when I see craziness in the groups, I just type, man, I'm just here for the comments because I want to get notifications when people are fighting with each other because I think it's funny, right? But get in. If you get in for the love of the game, for the love of lightsabers, for the love of Star Wars. There's so many lightsabers out there to work from. There's so many different ways you can do chassis. You can do removable ones, metal ones, eco ones. I mean, just because it's an eco doesn't mean it has to be plain, right? You can sit there and you can design a chassis and make it look very nice, and it could be an eco chassis, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like there's a lot of eco chassis that I've seen that I would prefer over a metal chassis because you can just tell the person spent time designing it. You just want it to be solid for it to function like it should, hold the board, try to hide your wiring, and that's it. And like every once in a while when you get a crazy customer, you're going to have to deal with that, and then just try to move on the best that you can. That's something that used to bother me a great deal when I had somebody who tried to like do a PayPal dispute on me or tried to say I was scamming them when I could prove later on that they didn't. It was like the whole course of having to deal with that really ground me down a little bit. I'd have to take a few days off because I was just mentally exhausted. And like today, if that happens, I'm just like, this dude's crazy. Here's all the proof, and I move on with my life. And that's something that just comes with time. Ask questions in the group. Personally, I'm an admin in the ULC, or the Universal Lightsaber Community Facebook group. There are lots of lightsaber Facebook groups, though. There's Lightsaber Marketplace. There's all kinds of them, right? Ask the questions, or if you want to go over to my page, and if there's anything that I could ever answer for you, I'll try my best. If I give you a short answer, it's not me being a dick to you necessarily. I'm just busy, and sometimes I just do a short answer, right? For a lot of my friends, I send them voice memos because I don't like typing. My thumbs have a lot of calluses on them from either soldering or cutting them with shit in the shop that I shouldn't be doing to begin with. I don't like typing because it always comes out wrong, and then I have to type it again. I just send short answers. But if you don't mind sending voice memos, we could chat it up. If there's something I could help you with, I could point you in the right direction of somebody who can. If you're going to ask questions, try to, if you're going to ask questions of like anybody in this hobby, not just me, but just try to do your research first, because likely somebody's asked that question before you. It's very easy to find the answer, but if you get stuck, ask somebody that you think that can help you, because most people will. All right. And yeah, so basically there's no shortcut to getting in here. If you just got to do it. You just got to keep doing it and keep doing it. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't do it. There's a lot of people that told me that in the beginning. They didn't want to help me, or told me like there wasn't any room for me. I didn't listen to any of that because I wasn't in it for a business. I was in it for the love of lightsabers, like I am today. I'm still in it for the love of lightsabers. That's why I do it 7 days a week. And I do some form of fashion work on lightsabers or chassis designs or something saber related 7 days a week, because it's what I love to do. Even after all this time, I've gotten into printing helmets recently. It's just something that I like to do as well. It's something that I like to do to unwind. So it's my hobby away from my hobby, kind of. But get into it for the love of sabers. Try to treat people like you want to be treated. Like if somebody wrongs you and they're in the wrong, you handle that how you got to handle it. But just try to be fair. Try to be consistent. Try to be transparent, and you'll be fine, right? Just keep doing your thing. I encourage anybody who's new to installing or like making something for this hobby to keep doing it. Keep doing it. Keep putting your work out there. If you're not doing it for validation and you're doing it for the love of the work, then it doesn't matter, right? Just keep doing what you love doing. And I've been very fortunate from you guys to have allowed me to do this for as long as I have. This video is very long. I don't ever ramble on this long. I haven't done any live streams this year. I haven't really done any of these updates. I thought it was time to just kind of sit down and talk about my business for a little bit. This year has been a little rough because like we haven't had much content. There's a flooding of drop shippers, so cheap Chinese sabers are coming in. You just got to keep working through that. All right, you just got to keep doing what you're doing. Try to improve on what you've already established that you can do, and just stay above that and show people why they should get something from you rather than a Chinese drop shipper. So don't just complain about that. Show them the quality difference between what you've got and what this drop shipper's got, and let the product speak for itself, and just keep trucking. All right. And that being said, I'm going to have to go get my haircut here. And after that, I need to come back and I need to do this install on this SP Sabers Shroud of the Dark Side. It's a small guy. I'll be doing that for Carter. Yeah, I'll be doing that for Carter here. And then enjoy the rest of my weekend. So thank you guys for tuning in. I know it's a little bit of a different video. It looks like I've been rambling on for almost an hour. That's all I got. So thanks for watching.